Hi, welcome. Thanks for watching and I appreciate you being here. This video is a video on my experience with a whole life insurance salesperson. Every month, I try and do 1 or 2 challenges to improve on my personal finances. The September challenge was to do a review of my insurance needs to make sure that they're adequate. I looked at all the different kinds of insurances that we have and all of the different assets that we had. And largely, I found that everything was fine. If you want to know more about that, I actually made a video on my experience doing the challenge. If you want more detail on that, I can link that in the description below and you can check that out. But I am specifically making this video to talk about my experience while shopping for life insurance, because one of the things that I determined that I needed to improve on was life insurance for both myself and my husband. I knew I needed to start shopping for insurance, but I didn't start yet. I didn't contact anybody and I didn't complete any forms giving out my information. I got an unsolicited call out of the blue from somebody who was offering financial planning services. It was completely coincidental because, like I said, I had not yet gotten in touch with anybody. The person who called me said that she worked with people like myself, whatever that means, because she didn't know anything about me. I don't even know how she got my phone number. And she said that she wanted to schedule a call. I had a feeling that it was about whole life insurance because typically financial planning services don't seek out people through cold calls like that. But I knew I wanted insurance anyway, so I figured I might as well have a chat with her so I can add whoever she works for on my list of options. When the appointment time came for us to have the call, she asked for basic information about myself, my family, and my goals. And then she immediately asked me about my insurance needs. I said I was looking, but I wasn't sure yet what I needed. She immediately offered whole life insurance, saying that it was the best choice for me. She said, I just know it because it's usually the best choice for everybody. I found that to be a really weird statement because there's no such thing as something being the best choice for everyone, especially if it's the most expensive option. Typically, when you're buying any kind of good product or service, something that's much more expensive compared to the other options typically means that it's a specialty product, and a specialty product doesn't translate to everyone. She went on by giving me a list of what she calls misconceptions about whole life insurance. And one of the things that she says, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit the like button so the algorithm knows that it's good, and of course subscribe for more content. If you think any of the information that I provide here might be helpful to somebody else, be sure to share it with them. Is that the biggest turnoff is that they are expensive. People just assume that they're expensive, and that's a huge misconception. Then she goes on to tell me that it's not $2,000 to $3,000 like some people might think. You can get it for as little as $500 a month. Now, the next thing that I'm going to say is my own speculation. Let me adjust my tinfoil hat really quick because yes, this is gonna sound, a little bit conspiracy theory like, but as somebody who's worked retail, I tend to be a little bit skeptical of salespeople because they always have an angle. But when she says that, I'm not sure if she was genuinely trying to appease me, make me feel better, or if she's trying to give me sticker shock by saying something like $3,000. That way I'll think that $500 a month looks like a bargain. I don't know. I'm just relaying the experience. Anyway, she tries to sell the whole thing really, really hard using all of the buzzwords that you're gonna hear on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook or whatever. I know you've heard those words. Cash value, tax-free, be your own bank, the wealthy do it. She even told me about a client who was worth $50 million that has whole life. You're never going to be in the red because it doesn't go down like the stock market. It's going to pay for itself, etc., etc., etc. But I'm going to stop here and take a moment to say something about whenever people tell you that the wealthy do something, I think it's really important for you to remember, just because a group of wealthy people do something, that does not mean that you should also do it. There's a difference between people doing something because they are wealthy versus people becoming wealthy by doing something. I am not going to use whole life insurance as an example. I'm not going to use a financial product. I'm going to use a different example to illustrate this. If you tell me that Jeff Bezos flies on a private jet or Warren Buffett flies on a private jet, does that mean I should also fly on a private jet because I aspire to be a billionaire? No, because they didn't become billionaires by flying on private jets. They fly on private jets because they are billionaires. When somebody says the wealthy does X, Y, and Z, ask yourself why. Don't automatically assume that it is a good choice for you. And that is one of the things that really rubs me the wrong way when it comes to financial products or certain financial moves that people try and promote. They will tell you that so-and-so does X, Y, Z. That doesn't really matter. Is that how they got their wealth? Probably not. They probably got their wealth in a different way, but now they are doing this particular move and they're taking this particular action specifically because their wealth has added complexity to their life that requires that they take that action. I don't care about your $50 million client having whole life insurance because I don't have $50 million. They didn't get to have $50 million by having whole life insurance. They probably have to have whole life insurance because they have $50 million and that's a way for them to get around estate taxes. I'm gonna pause right here on this rant and move on with the conversation because that's really something that is a pet peeve of mine. In any case, I continued being patient. I figured I am not at all interested in this whole life nonsense that she's spouting, but she's working hard, and even though she's not gonna get the commission that she wants, if I have the opportunity to have her make the sale, I'm gonna be patient to see when the term life insurance option comes up. I wanna say that this was a unique experience for me because she sounded like she was very new to the business. In the past, I've had experience with more seasoned life insurance salespeople who knew better than to ever mention that it was a whole life insurance product. Rather, they just called it a product, a financial instrument, an investment, to the point where they never used the term whole life. And I think I may have mentioned this in a previous video. And I didn't even realize that it was whole life until I was considering investing, quote unquote investing, which is really not investing, just buying really expensive insurance. And I do research one last time and I realized what they're trying to sell me. But in this case, this was unique because it was the first time that I went into a conversation knowing exactly what I was being offered because she mentioned it probably within the first 10 minutes of the conversation. What she told me was that she would follow up with a joint call with an investment advisor. After that call, she sends me a spreadsheet requesting financial information, my goals, my age, my husband's age, or account balances, or annual contribution amounts, etc. Now remember, this is at the end of call number 2. So when she is saying whole life insurance is what's best for me, she didn't even know anything about my financial situation. She was already telling me it was best for me. And then it wasn't until after she told me that she started saying, hey, by the way, how much money do you have in investment? What does your portfolio look like? What are your goals? So she was telling me that I need to buy this product without even knowing what my goals were. I digress. I schedule this joint call, and that joint conference call, this is call number 3 with the whole life insurance salesperson and call number 1 with the investment advisor. I will say that they were very good salespeople, especially the investment advisor. They know how to keep you on the line. They know what to say. They know what questions to ask to dig deep and get you talking. As somebody who struggles with sales to some extent, I can respect that. We went over my spreadsheet. The investment advisor said, you're actually a really good saver. He complimented me on that. And then he listed out everything he thought that his team had to offer me, putting my stuff on autopilot, optimization, tax loss harvesting, freeing me from an undesirable task. The words he used actually were, I know that looking at spreadsheets, your financial situation, your investment, that's not what you want to do after working all week. If this guy knew anything about me, he would realize how wrong he is. That is exactly what I want to do all day, every day. I wish I could get paid to look at my own spreadsheets. Unfortunately, I end up getting paid to look at other people's spreadsheets. And while I was on the phone with him, I sent a text to my husband and we laughed about that. This is a borderline hobby for me, to the point where I started this whole YouTube channel so I could have a reason to do this without looking like a crazy person. That way, when I obsess over my spreadsheets, I can just say, oh, I'm doing it for my videos, and it looks a lot less weird. But he could not be more wrong about what I'm willing to do or what entertains me when it comes to personal finances. The entire time the investment advisor and I are having this conversation, the whole life salesperson is very silent on the call. That's nothing bad, but she's clearly deferring to a more experienced team member. About 30 minutes into the call, the insurance topic comes up and I start shooting down every point. And I tell them that I do understand under some circumstances, maybe if somebody's disabled or maybe they have a disabled dependent, I don't know, that might work for them, that they need life insurance forever. But in my case, that's not really the case. My goal is to do 20 years or so. By then, my son will be out of undergrad. Also, my mortgage will be paid off by the time we retire. And if I do term life, which is going to be much cheaper, I can invest the difference. Plus, things like you can have access to money tax-free isn't really appealing to somebody who is likely going to be under the estate tax limit. And when it comes to cash value, that's not really attractive either, because I feel like an adequate emergency fund should be my primary source of cash. Interestingly enough, he agrees with me and says that he feels like term life insurance is best in my situation. I think that was probably due to a lack of conflict of interest in his part. He gets paid based on assets under management, not by commission, unlike the other person. And I imagine that probably didn't make her very happy. If that's the case, she wasn't gonna say anything while I was on the call. Anyway, we moved on to the term life insurance application process, and we talk about scheduling another call to cover that in more detail. But to stay on track, we move on to investments, and what he tells me is that the fee is more than 1%. I wasn't on camera, but my eyes probably just bulged out of my head. It would have been so visible if I was in the same room as those people, how shocked I was that the fee was so high. I didn't want to be rude, but I lost all interest after that. Of course, he tried to frame it as something that motivates them to do better because they make more money if clients do well. But absolutely not 1%, I don't think so. How much more money would you have to make to justify taking 1% of my portfolio? They would have to consistently beat market returns by about 1% just so they can break even with what I'm doing now, because I have a total stock market. I'm definitely interested in the term life insurance product, but nothing else. I'm trying to go for a 20-year term, enough time to get my son through undergrad, be close to paying off the mortgage, and have a sizable investment portfolio. Well, maybe I shouldn't say nothing else. I may also go with long-term care insurance. But my big takeaway from this experience is that you could tell who on that team was a fiduciary and who was not. There was one person that was pushing me really hard towards something that was cost prohibitive, that didn't make any sense, and she stood to gain financially from whatever decision I made. The other person heard me out and decided that my objections made sense and agreed that I should have the product that I want. But with that said, it also made me realize that a fiduciary is not the same thing as a fee-only advisor. Very few people need full-service investment advisors, even if the person's a fiduciary. Very few people have the level of complexity that requires or justifies paying those prices. Just because somebody's transparent and relatively honest, at least to the extent that their professional standards requires them to be, that does not mean that they are good for you. $1 out of every $100 that I have is very steep. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that he offered that I wasn't either already doing, that I wasn't aware of, or that I wasn't planning on doing when the time came. And my final takeaway, and the biggest piece that I've learned through this entire life insurance process, is that get life insurance early and do it for an extended period of time, because the premium stays the same throughout the life of the insurance. But once you hit your 30s, they start doing things like requesting medical exams, requesting your entire medical history, or at least as far back as 10 years. And who knows what they will find that they will determine to be a turnoff and decide that they are not going to insure you, or they're going to give you a very unfavorable rate. Even seemingly the most mundane condition might be something that they determine makes you an undesirable candidate. One of the things they asked me about was whether or not I've ever had anxiety, whether or not I've ever had a skin condition. What does that have to do with anything? I guess if you have a skin condition, maybe you might not have very good self-esteem, and maybe you might be suicidal. I don't know, I'm just speculating. But these questions seem like they were so weird. Because yes, I expect questions about cancer and AIDS, things with very high mortality rate. They were just seemingly super petty questions that seemed a bit unnecessary. I really doubt that if you're in your 20s, they are that difficult about it. In my case, I'm in my 30s. Yes, I definitely regret not getting outside term life insurance independent from my employer well in advance when I was much younger and when I would get the most favorable rate and at a point where I would have the absolute thinnest medical file for them to review. That is my story. But as always, I want to hear from you. Please share in the comment section below whether or not you have life insurance. If you do, is it through work or do you have an independent standalone policy? And if you have a standalone policy, what kind? Is it term? Is it whole life? And then for how long? If it's term, is it 10, 25, 30 years? I don't know. And if you're comfortable, feel free to share what the amount is. Evidently, we are not beneficiaries to your insurance proceeds, so we're not going to harm you for insurance payment. So feel free to share if you're comfortable. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave me questions, comments, feedback about anything personal finance related. Be well, and until then, I'll see you next time. I would like to continue sharing my thoughts on all things money with you. So I would appreciate it if you could help out the channel by liking this video and sharing it with anyone you think might benefit from it. If you want to see more content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can know when new videos come out. I'll see you in the next one.